Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are tackling something literally monumental. We're going to decode the anatomy of faith by breaking down Thomas Aquinas' absolute medieval masterpiece, the Summa Theologica. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Dense philosophical texts can seem incredibly intimidating, right? But honestly, don't worry. Aquinas actually had this brilliantly organized mind, and we're going to use his exact dialectic method to logically dismantle, examine, and reconstruct what it actually means to believe. It's like a giant puzzle, and today we're mapping the unseen. Okay, let's dive straight into this. Honoring Aquinas' highly organized method, here is our roadmap. We'll start by defining the unseen, move on to faith versus science, examine the act of believing, look at implicit and explicit faith, and then finally, we'll wrap up with reason and merit. All right, Section 1, defining the unseen. What exactly is faith? Aquinas actually grounds his entire argument in one foundational text from Hebrews 11:1. It says, "Faith is the substance of things to be hoped for, the evidence of things that appear not." I mean, just look at the inherent tension in those words. How on earth can you have evidence of something that literally does not appear? Well, Aquinas explains that faith is the first beginning, the actual substance inside us of the eternal life we hope for. It forces our intellect to assent to something that just isn't physically apparent. So this brings us to a really provocative Socratic question, which is a classic hallmark of how Aquinas builds an idea. He asks, what is the formal object of faith? Meaning, when you believe, what exactly is your intellect aiming at? What's the bullseye? The answer he gives is the first truth. Aquinas argues that the formal aspect of faith is absolutely nothing else but this ultimate divine truth. And the critical distinction we have to make here is that faith targets this truth not because you walked outside and observed it through human perception, but strictly because it is revealed by God. Which leads Aquinas to this punchy bottom line conclusion: nothing false can come under faith. Think about the logic for a second. If the formal object of faith is the first truth, and the first truth is flawless by definition, then true faith simply cannot contain falsehood. It's impossible. Just as non-being can't stand under being, falsehood cannot stand under the ultimate truth. Moving right along to Section 2, faith versus science, two totally different realms. Aquinas was an absolute master of defining things by contrasting them with what they are not. So he poses the question, can those things that are of faith be an object of science? Basically, can you logically prove or possess absolute scientific knowledge of the exact same thing you claim to believe by faith? Aquinas says absolutely not, and here's the contrast. Science is certain knowledge derived from seen, self-evident principles and logical demonstrations. Faith, on the other hand, is an assent to the unseen. It happens when the intellect is moved by the will, not by some mathematical demonstration. Because of this, Aquinas argues it's literally impossible for the exact same thing to be scientifically seen and simultaneously believed by the same person. They occupy entirely, completely different mental spaces. Now, what's really interesting here is how Aquinas borrows from Gregory to completely seal his argument. When a thing is manifest, it is the object not of faith, but of perception. It makes perfect sense, right? If you can see it, prove it, and demonstrate it in a lab, your relationship to it is no longer faith at all, it's just perception. True faith fundamentally requires its object to remain unseen. Okay, Section 3, the act of believing. We're shifting from what faith targets to the internal mechanics of how the mind actually performs the act. Aquinas defines believing as thinking with assent. This is a highly active mental mechanism. It's an act where the intellect firmly cleaves to one side. But here's the real kicker. It's determined not by logical reason forcing it to happen, but by the will commanding it to. Your will actively chooses to latch onto the truth. To get super granular, Aquinas categorizes human thought into three different buckets. First, a general consideration of the intellect, which is really just observing facts. Second, a deliberating inquiry devoid of firm assent. This is where doubt, suspicion, or opinion live. You're leaning one way, but kind of fear the other. And third, the cognitive power of the sensitive faculty. Now, faith actually elevates that second bucket. It takes the deliberating intellect and, through the sheer power of the will, forces a firm, unwavering assent. And just as there are three ways to think, Aquinas outlines three dimensions of believing. First, believing God. This is trusting the source, that first truth. Second, believing in a God. This is the material object of your belief. And third, believing in God. This is the active movement, the intellect propelled by the will toward its ultimate end. Actually, it's crucial to note these aren't three separate actions. They are all one unified act, just with different relations to the object of faith.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4, implicit and explicit faith. Let's talk about the social dynamics.
Since we know not everyone is a highly trained philosopher, Aquinas asks a very practical question. Are all equally bound to have explicit faith? Does every single person walking the earth need to fully understand every complex theological concept explicitly just to be saved? And this brilliantly illustrates his answer. Aquinas borrows this fascinating, kind of quirky medieval metaphor from Gregory, referencing the book of Job. The oxen were plowing and the asses feeding beside them. I know it sounds a little strange to modern ears, but the symbolism here is profoundly practical. Let's break down the comparison. The learned are the oxen. They are bound to explicit faith. Because they possess fuller knowledge, they carry the heavy plow of teaching and defending the complexities of doctrine. The simple are the asses, feeding safely beside them. They are bound only to implicit faith. Simple folks aren't punished for lacking deep theological training, as long as they implicitly align with the truth taught by the learned. It's a system of mutual reliance. However, whether you happen to be the ox or the ass, Aquinas emphasizes a really strict duty. While faith is an internal act of the intellect, outward confession is absolutely necessary when God's honor or a neighbor's good demands it. Basically, if staying silent would cause harm or allow falsehood to spread like wildfire, you are strictly required to speak up. No exceptions.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Reason and Merit, the ultimate tension. Here is the final Socratic question for us to ponder. If you use human logic and reasoning to back up your faith, does it destroy the merit of believing in the unseen? I mean, if you have proof, do you lose the spiritual reward?
Aquinas makes a razor-sharp distinction here, and it all comes down to timing. Reason preceding the will absolutely diminishes merit. If you refuse to believe until someone proves it to you logically, you aren't really exhibiting faith, you're literally just submitting to data. But reason consequent to the will actually increases merit. This is when you already passionately believe, your will is prompt, and because you love the truth so much, you actively seek to understand it through reason. So the crucial point is this. Aquinas beautifully synthesizes logic and belief. Human reason does not exclude the merit of faith. When it's driven by a love for the truth you already believe, reasoning is actually a sign of far greater merit. It shows an active, fully engaged, and hungry mind. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've decoded how faith targets the unseen, how it differs from science, and how it actively engages both the intellect and the will. So I have to ask you, if faith is indeed the substance of things hoped for, the very foundation of the unseen, how does it shape the reality you choose to see today? Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.